Change my view. Even if there's definitive proof Trump is a pedophile via Epstein files, it won't change MAGA or GOP support for him.
Here's my reasoning. Republicans didn't change course after countless mass shootings, even when kids were killed in classrooms. They've shown that no level of tragedy or moral outrage will make them abandon their positions if it threatens their political power. So, I don't see why concrete proof of Trump being a pedophile would make a difference. His base is fiercely loyal, and GOP leadership has a track record of closing ranks instead of holding him accountable. My view is that, at most, a few moderates might peel off, but overall, his support would remain largely intact, and the Republican Party wouldn't dump
him. The culture war narrative would just spin it as a deep state setup or an attack by the left. Like everything else. Change my view. What am I missing? Are there examples where something this extreme has actually broken through to change political behavior? Could legal or electoral dynamics make this a bigger deal than I think?
The fact that not releasing the files is causing so much trouble for him seems to indicate otherwise. If people are this upset about that, they'll be even more upset about learning he's an actual pedo. A decent chunk of his base is already turning on him though. He's losing the conspiracy theorists. So, he would definitely lose a lot of those people. Even some of the white nationalists are turning on him. Nick Fuentes, for instance, just went on a rant about how MAGA is a scam, and even Harris would have been better. If that came out, he's cooked. Even cults have their limits. Republicans didn't change course after countless mass shootings, even when kids were killed in classrooms, because Republicans do not believe that your stated solution is workable or achievable. That people do not accept your preferred solutions is not evidence that they do not have solutions or are not bothered by the problem.
You're missing the fact that the Dems had this info.
If there would be anything inside to get Trump, don't you think they would have used that instantly?
Either there is nothing or it's not possible to expose Trump without exposing themselves.
I think there's a good portion of his base that are conspiracy theorists and have based their political point of view on the idea that Trump is president to crack down on the pedo, sex ring, the fuel Q, and Pizzagate. At subreddit now have to grapple with the idea that he ran on releasing the Epstein file pedo sex ring confirmed and promised transparency, but is now coming out as the total opposite of what they believed. The only explanation for this to them seems to be that Trump is either being blackmailed by the deep state or that he's blackmailing them. Either way, his actions at least seem to point to him choosing to protect the deep state rather than to out them and save the world's children.
I agree that his support will remain, but not for the reasons you claim. Your claim is that Republicans are inherently evil and are okay with mass shootings and pedophilia due to political loyalty. But the Republicans are mostly religious Christians and non-secular. No Republican that I know of are pro-pedophilia or mass shooting. They just have different approaches to solving these problems than Democrats. They also view Democrats as mass murderers for allowing 1 million abortions a year. And they view Democrats as having no moral framework, creating a more degenerate society, encouraging promiscuity, disencouraging having
children, etc. So even if Trump is on a list, which he probably is, they still have to look at the parties and see which ones they are more aligned with. Now, being on the list is one thing. If there is definitive proof that he is a pedo, I personally think he will lose support.
I am conservative. I already didn't want Trump, just not for the same reasons that liberals don't want him. I think you can see that most conservatives actually care about the Epstein stuff because the issue won't die. It's one of the few things we thought Trump might do that was actually good, and he's trying to insult his way out of it. There will absolutely be loyalists despite him being on the list if that turns out to be the case. I expect the list implicates the general world leadership and would mean untold fallout would be the reason he wants to hide it. Doesn't matter to most conservatives. We want it anyway. What?
Comprising a good part of conservative ideology today is institutional distrust in almost every arena. So anything that breaks apart the dysfunctional status quo is good by us.
Are there examples where something this extreme has actually broken through to change political behavior? Take Dennis Hastert, for example. He was the longest-serving Speaker of the House for the GOP. When he was a huge power broker in Washington, he said in a statement once, "It is equally important to stop those predators before they strike, to put repeat child molesters into jail for the rest of their lives." To put what he did was as brazen as it gets. He had a reclining chair in direct view of where boys showered at a school he worked in. And nobody batted an eye. Until he pleaded guilty for the illegal hush money payments he made. Granted, he was retired by then. How popular do you think he is amongst Trump's base now? When he was in power, they would have defended and deflected and protected. But when he isn't in power, hardly knew him. In our political moment, it's hard to imagine a day where MAGA will say Trump was never MAGA. But before MAGA, there was Reno, Republican in name only. Before Reno, there was the Me Too Republicans not related to the social movement in the mid-aughts. There's always this push for purity within the GOP. So what Falls of Grace really looks like was, he was never part of us. Basically, as long as
there's enough deniability, fail cover the wagons. When fair exposed, they were never us. The biggest crime is disloyalty. The second biggest crime is getting caught. It's why they kick out Liz Cheney but circled the wagons to protect Madison Cawthorn until the gay sex tape came out, and you'd never know that he once was the best campaign fundraiser of any House member and had an internal approval rating of 80%, and even then, he got 31.9% of a primary vote and lost to Chuck Edwards, who got 33.4%. Change my view, women are horrible at communicating regarding sex.
So, I'm a girl, and I've had threesomes and stuff like that, and what I've noticed is that women are generally
terrible at how to communicate if they actually want to have sex or not. And I don't know how men are even able to deal with this bull. I understand that a lot of girls have a problem being outright with sex because we don't want to be viewed greasy. So I've been in threesome situations where I know that the girl wants to have sex, or she keeps saying, oh, I don't know, maybe we should have another shot or something like that, which kind of sounds like a no. I don't want to have sex. Want to have sex. She's just making him push more and more. And in another situation where a girl says the same thing, that does mean no. I don't want to have sex. But the girl won't just communicate her boundary. When I don't want to have sex, he'll just say it outright. If I'm hanging out with FWB, and they try a move, he'll just tell them like, hey, I don't want to have sex tonight, and that will end the sexual interaction. And more women need to do this. We give way too much agency to the men. Sorry if I'm not even making my point clear here. I guess I could expand more in the comments, but I hope people get my overall point.
I'm making an edit because people somehow are misunderstanding what I'm saying. I'm not talking about a situation where a woman literally says no. That's exactly what I want women to do because IT will reduce rape culture.
Second edit. The girl in the situation in describing wants to have sex. She isn't being coerced. She wants the sex to happen. She just isn't asserting that because she's afraid of being viewed as a.
You say blanket women are horrible at communicating regarding sex, then you go on to say, you, as a woman, have no problem communicating regarding sex. You just disproved your own view with your own life experience.
You are painting with an incredibly broad brush, and this line of thinking is incredibly dangerous. If a woman says no, it means no. There is no gray area. The actions you describe taking has led to accusations of rape and coercion. Perhaps there are women who are terrible at communicating their desires. However, your statement that all women are horrible at communicating their sexual preferences is objectively false.
And then that's how women in my life say no by saying no.
Never have I ever heard from a real woman I said no, but I wanted him to push me or force me. The first, what even is this?
So have you still been having sex with these women that aren't clearly communicating that they want to have sex or not?
Consent is enthusiastic.
Anything other than yes is no. Hope this helps.
Being hesitant to engage in sex is a form of communication. Uncertainty, discomfort, or mixed signals should be treated as a no because they are communicating something important, lack of full consent. It's not a woman's job to override her own hesitation just to make things easier for men or anyone else participating in the threesome. The burden shouldn't be on women to always say the perfect no. It should be on everyone to listen and respect hesitation as meaningful, not as an obstacle to push past. If someone isn't sure, you don't proceed. Period. That's not confusing, it's how consent works.
I'm just going to say that I strongly suspect, at least, that your sample size isn't large enough for you to make a generalized comment about women.
I think generalizations are always false. There are absolutely women out there who do know how to communicate when it comes to sex, and unfortunately some women who do not. However, I think in the examples you are giving, I get the impression these women are actually genuinely unsure at that stage whether they wish to have sex or not, which, to be on the safe side, we should take as a no, as we should only have sex following enthusiastic consent. How can someone be unsure if they want to have sex or not? Numerous examples. Asterisk nerves. You are horny and want to have sex, but you are nervous about showing your
body or your performance or something else. Asterisk tiredness. Sometimes you like the idea of sex, but your body is just too exhausted. Asterisk weighing up consequences. Sometime you want to have sex and you are ready, but you worry about whether this may have an impact on the dynamic between you or be weird the next morning. Asterisk low libido. Maybe you want to have sex, especially if you booked a gorgeous hotel and space to do it, but you're just not feeling it.
And it's annoying if you have waited ages for this just to not be in the mood, so you stick around to hope maybe I'll be up for it. I don't think knowing if you want to have sex or
Not is as simple as yes or no. We acknowledge that some people have spontaneous desire, i.e. they just know when they want it and go get it, and others have responsive desire and tend not to be fussed until they get some foreplay or some affection. Frequently, people might not be sure about sex, but they know they may be up for it if they say have a shower, or eat some chocolate, or have a massage, or maybe a shot to ease some nerves, or maybe have some kissing. They may encourage some form of sexual behavior in the hopes it can bring them to it. I don't think this is poor communication. I think people, in this case,
Women are not sure and need some other conditions in place before they can enthusiastically consent to sex.
Change my view. By 2026, job losses from AI will be major news. By 2030, unemployment will threaten the whole economic system.
Hope I'm wrong, or that our benevolent and wise governments have plans for this, but just this week my mate and his whole marketing team were made redundant, their jobs now automated. I tried ringing around a bunch of other friends to help them find a new job. All of them said they were having major restructures and headcount reductions due to AI. The company I work for has said we are looking for AI-based efficiencies that may result in job losses. Under all the layers of euphemistic vet, the truth is abundantly clear. AI is coming for white-collar jobs, for service-based economies like the UK and a lot of the West. This is a major issue. By next year, I predict this exponentially rising unemployment will be major news. By 2030, the challenge we will face is there will be such high unemployment. There are no longer enough consumers to buy the products these lean, hyper-automated companies spit out. Despite the apparent cost savings, with no revenue coming in, these companies will in turn fail. This will threaten the entire global economy. Change my view, please.
I don't know how far into the future I want to try and predict, but 2026 and 2030. Are you aware that we're currently more than halfway through 2025? What exactly do you expect to happen in the next 5 months? You give this anecdote about your friend and their job search, but that's happening now But are we seeing any major rise in unemployment levels? Do you think your friend is never going to find another job? I think they probably will. There's lots of jobs out there. That could change eventually. But I think the time frame is going to be a lot longer than you're implying here.
Despite AI being a growing powerhouse for the past 2-5 years depending on how you view it, it has realistically resulted in very little job loss. According to the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, the U.S. has been steadily gaining more jobs than it is losing since after the pandemic. Yes, that is changing but there's nothing that says AI is the sole cause. Many people dispute these numbers, but that is its own discussion. Source on top of that, there's many reasons why jobs are being lost right now, and AI may just
be the excuse companies are using to lay people off. It looks bad on a company to lay off 200 employees for cost reasons. It just looks like smart management if they say they do it for AI, which suggests the company is progressing technologically. There's a lot of talk about uprising and complete control with AI, but it's important to note that much of it is exaggerated. It's usually hyperbolic news drivel at worst and people misunderstanding the news, and reports at best. AI 2027, for example, is a fun little paper written by a small, admittedly very intelligent and well-researched group. That does not make it fact. Plenty of experts disagree with their following of the framework, and the writers of AI 2027 have themselves admitted they may be off about the timeline. Finally, this is not the first technology will destroy everything rodeo that even the recent world has been through. Computers once also made work so efficient that one person could often do the paper, work of 10, that led to decreased jobs of that kind but more jobs surfaced as the economy adapted to the new landscape.
Some jobs still have to be done by humans. Are you saying that AI sales teams will be selling to AI purchasing teams? Everything can be automated, except when it comes to manipulating real money or interacting with real humans. Some industries will never be AI-ed because it would cost actual human lives. Can you imagine being trapped in a burning house and being told, oh, the AI firemen will come and get you? AI is nice, but we don't even have self-driving cars that are capable of not killing people yet. People in developing countries stand to be more affected by automation than those living in the West because
the first jobs to go will be the highly repetitive brain-numbing jobs that have already been outsourced. Globalization has already destroyed entire industries include textiles, FMCG, etc. in the West. The countries that stand to benefit the most from this level of offshoring will stand to lose out because it will be easier to buy a computer to do all this than it would be for a company to invest in an undeveloped community in a country that nobody has ever heard of.
It's pretty reductive to assume the result will be this tidal wave of unemployment and doom. Just looking back through time, historically there have been major shifts in technology that have displaced roles but created new ones. You could say the same here about the printing press. Reskilling is what becomes important with AI. Google's self-driving car project started over 15 years ago, and we still don't have actual self-driving cars. AI is not actual AI. It's a useful tool when used by skilled people. There will be some jobs lost, and there will be hard lessons learned, including unfucking what mess careless use of AI tools will create. New jobs will be created, and unemployment in 2030 will be similar to 2025.
who will want to buy the products made by bots? Seems like a human hand sure supported by AI, and what it has to offer will still be important. AI can't spit out marketing materials, but if everyone does it like that, it will lose its effect. Right now, there is an explosion of possibilities and fake content, but I think if the noise multiplies by 100, then people will start to defend themselves from the fake content, stop scrolling, stop watching commercials, etc. That's my hope, that people won't put up with slop, even if it's well-generated.
Throughout history, people have feared technological leaps would lead to mass unemployment. But what has happened is that jobs are lost in certain sectors, but new ones are created that pick up the slack. AI should follow that pattern.
I'd say that China invading Taiwan would be a bigger threat to the global economy than AI taking jobs, because then China would control 95% of the world's computing chips. And around that time, 2030-2035 is about when it'll happen if the US and its allies don't get there
together.
Change my view. Housewives who refuse to be submissive can be accused of wanting traditional benefits without traditional obligations.
Traditional gender roles were never fair to begin with. It's like saying workers who used to work 16-hour days for meager pay and then fought for fair wages and humane conditions, expecting better pay to meet their needs, are now expecting old benefits without old obligations as if they should be grateful for exploitation. Expecting a man to earn money in return for a woman to cook, clean, raise children was fine. But then sexism comes in. You also are supposed to be obedient, docile, chaste, and endlessly tolerant of his flaws was never a fair or equal exchange. It was a deeply imbalanced social contract.
Expecting someone to be subservient to you in exchange of taking on financial responsibility was unfair in the first place. The labor of a housewife is enough. It's literally human rights violation. Saying if we're going to protect you and pay for you, you need to be submissive and know your place wouldn't fly in any other context. Imagine saying that in a relationship between employer and employee, or between races or classes, it would be rightly condemned as a violation of human rights. Why then is it acceptable when directed at women?
You're tying the docile and submissive part to cooking and cleaning, which I don't think is accurate. Submissive is a cultural, societal, historical issue that limits women's freedoms and autonomy. Cooking and cleaning, if you're not working, is called contributing to the household. You can have the latter without the former. The general breakdown of one person doing the providing and the other doing the caring is fair on a vacuum. The issue is women not having a choice previously. If they choose not to work, then they'll have to do work at home. I would say the same for any man when the woman's the breadwinner. It's very context dependent. There are a minority of women who are childless and want a man to provide for them and give them money so they can go out and shop and eat lunch all day. If you're not repaying that at home, then it's called freeloading, which is BS no matter what gender's doing it.
Imagine if an employer required their employees to be submissive, aka obedient, is sort of the basic idea of what a job is. Do the thing get the green in a nutshell?
This is confusing because you're posing a question that people have all sorts of answers to, and not stating a view to be changed.
Within a household, division of labor and division of authority aren't the same question and don't have to have the same answer. So far as that goes, we probably agree. But they are both real questions which deserve a real answer. If you and your partner choose together a lifestyle where only one person is responsible for all the tasks of earning money, yes, you should expect the other person to take more of the home responsibilities in exchange.
I don't understand your point, to be honest.
If a man wanted the submissive wife aspects without being a provider, then he is asking for the traditional benefits without the obligations. If a woman wants to not work and be provided for without the submissive elements, then she's asking for the traditional benefits without the obligations.
Anyone can want what they want as long as both people are happy. Who cares?
But I do not see how inequality within a traditional setup means that you can't point out someone cherry-picking aspects that suit them.
If you're arguing that your housewife is merely proposing a new, more equal
arrangement in the traditional setup, that's fine. But it would not change her borrowing the good and discarding the bad from her perspective only from that setup. The core issue here actually isn't specifically this. No feminist group would agree with the statement. Modern feminist activism strives to increase social privileges for women while reducing social burdens for women. Yet, that is precisely what you're describing. Let's just remove gender from the equation, as well as the romantic relationship. I want to live at your house, and I want you to provide for all of my living expenses, as well as buy me things I want but don't need occasionally. In return, I will do nothing and contribute nothing. Why should anyone accept that agreement? What rational reason would there be to do so?
Not all housewives are tradwives. In fact, most housewives aren't. Feminism has argued that women should be allowed to work if they want, but if they want to be housewives, they can. Tradwives are a distinct modern conservative phenomenon wherein people cosplay as if it were 1950 on the internet. In this way, what they do isn't governed by what is fair, but by the time period they are supposedly emulating. If you were to cosplay as a 1800s coal miner, then the historically accurate thing to do would be to work 10-12 hours a day. You don't have to cosplay as an 1800s coal miner, but if someone were to claim that they were doing
that, but only worked 8 hours a day, that would be a fair criticism. If someone is cosplaying as a Civil War soldier, then it's fair to criticize them for playing on their phone while in character. In this same way, someone cosplaying as if they were a 1950s housewife would have to be submissive, or else they wouldn't really be playing the part. All that to say, housewives aren't tradwives. But if someone is a tradwife, then the criticism does actually have some sense to it.
Saying if we're going to protect you and pay for you, you need to be submissive and know your place wouldn't fly in any other context. Imagine saying that in a relationship between employer and employee, or between races or classes, it would be rightly condemned as a violation of human rights. I don't think the modern conversation is you need to be submissive and know your place in Western circles that talk about traditional men works, while the woman is the homemaker-style marriages outside of very extremist religious circles, even in the average conservative Christian circles where this kind of marriage arrangement is
expected. It's seen as both doing their roles to support the other, not have one dominate the other. It's kind of a strawman to present these kinds of extremes as anything but extremes. I have friends that married into this kind of relationship, and it's never my wife is intended to be my submissive servant. It's I labor at my construction job for 10 hours a day, then come home to my grateful wife, who has worked to make sure I can come home and spend time with her and my kid, so I have the energy to go back out there and work again tomorrow. And her perspective is my husband works his
Off to provide the money so I don't have to work, eh?
job and can raise our kid safely and shower him in love, and because of that it's my job to make sure he is able to recoup after his long day because I love what he has sacrificed for me. Both have viewed their roles as sacrificial to each other, with each one submitting to the other's authority on specific matters. He decides if shopping at one store is too expensive vs another, because he brings in the money. She decides if something is good for their growing child because she's the mother, more in tune with the kid's needs as she spends more time with him and knows more. These relationships are pushed as a give and take for both.
Participants. Not having to have both parents work is a privileged position in today's economy, and it's better for the child as well when compared to kids that have to go to child care in their early years. The conversation isn't you must submit to me, it's you need to help me so I can help you, and the conversation goes both ways. These marriages can be built on consensual serving of each other, doing what they believe their better role is to provide a harmonious home.
Change my view, insinuating someone has a small.
as an insult is hurtful to those with small penises and sends us backwards.
Today I was listening to a podcast, a very popular one at that. The discussion was about a serial killer who also sexually abused his victims. Gruesome stuff. At some point, the podcast host started going on about how this guy must have had a tiny.
And started making jokes about how the doctors spent hours looking for it when he was born. It really took me for a loop, since it was all fact-based and then somehow became insulting to all those people with small penises. We've all heard it, in the street, a conversation with friends, people saying someone has a tiny.
As a metaphor for negative character traits.
Could be that they're a misogynist, or someone that uses their power to abuse others. The comment is designed to sting, and paints a negative picture of people with small dicks. Now for the record, I don't have a small.
I thought about whether or not this would be worth mentioning, and decided to include this since it's worth knowing that I'm not starting this conversation for my own benefit, but rather for those around me who suffer each time these comments are made.
I've heard people on Reddit justifying their comments and claiming they aren't intended to offend those with smaller than average penises. It's not
About the actual
size, it's more so about their mindset. Ultimately, you can't disconnect the two without remove
size aspect entirely.
It's the same as people using the word gay to describe things or people in a negative way. That's so gay or don't be gay are examples of language that was used a lot more 10 plus years ago, that is thankfully dying out.
15 years ago I was at a BBQ and I heard a straight guy wearing a banana costume, no joke, call something gay, using it instead of the word bad. Basically, the thing he was referring to had nothing to do with homosexuality.
I chimed in, no, I think it's actually
Pretty straight. He realized the insensitivity of his comment at this point, and proceeded to explain that he wasn't referring to homosexuality, but that it was just a term. It's like how I call my friends.
But it actually has nothing to do with being gay. It's just a way to tease. We're just playing around. I proceeded to explain to him, a full-grown man, that linking such negativity with physical mental attributes, such as their sexuality or
size, is really detrimental to those affected, and sends us back decades in terms of societal progression. This kind of insult is in the same vein as calling someone fat in a negative way, or using racist
Slurs edit. Yes, the racism comparison was a stretch. I'm leaving it in here since it's relevant to some responses, but agree that it's not so relevant. It's still very widespread, with popular figures still using it regularly. It sends us backwards and hurts those with small penises. It only serves to hurt and doesn't offer anything useful. Please convince me otherwise if you have a different opinion. And if you agree, please reach out also.
I agree that as an insult it's not good.
I disagree that it's in the same vein as racial slurs.
It isn't.
Sure, they are both qualities that can't be changed.
but the consequences of being on the receiving end of racism vs being on the receiving end of small
humiliation are completely different.
Insinuating someone has a small
as an insult is hurtful to those with small penises, and asterisk sends us backwards. Asterisk asterisk, we can't really argue what is or isn't hurtful. That's an emotion, not a view we can really challenge. So let's focus on that second part. We already live in a world where insinuating someone has a small
is pretty, albeit unfortunately, commonplace. That's not sending anyone backwards. It's just maintaining a mean status quo. Asterisk now. For the record, I don't have a...
I thought about whether or not this would be worth mentioning, and decided to include this, since it's worth knowing that I'm not starting this conversation for my own benefit but rather for those around me who suffer each time these comments are made. Asterisk, isn't that what someone with a small
would say to deflect attention? Would you be okay with using the small issue in a joke? For example, during stand-ups. Whether this applies to you or not, I think this problem has several layers, but ultimately, it can be boiled down to the issue of moderating other
people's speech. Don't you think it's unhealthy to expect others to subordinate their speech to the demands of others?
Is the basis of this change my view really just insults and mean? We should stop insulting people if this is the case. Frankly, it's more an issue of your own personal insecurities getting the better of you than anything else. The random podcast host was not directing their comments towards you whatsoever, yet you took their words to heart and feel personally insulted over it. Comparing this to the use of racial slurs, which is hate speech that routinely is invoked before the use of violence, is an unserious position to hold. Your own personal insecurities are not on the same level as racialized violence.
I do not see any language or humor as inherently hurtful because language alone is just too subjective to get worked up over unless it is combined with structural violence. I mean, you do not have to be insulted by the ignorance of others, nor do you have to like it, but it is definitely up to you how you perceive their ignorance. I personally dislike ignorant people to the point that I give 0
about what their view of me is. Most of my emotional suffering in life has been due to me wanting to be liked and respected by people I don't even know or like. This opinion is based on the academic premise that racism is power plus prejudice. If
someone tells you that everyone with a small
should go to the back of the bus and they have law enforcement backing them, you can claim that their language is objectively harmful to people with small penises. If there is no power, though, you can just tell them to
off and go on about your business sitting wherever you like, and you are also free to insult them back. You can say whatever you want, and I can take it however I want.
Sends us back decades in terms of societal progression. This is a bit of a semantic point, but small penises are different from all of the other examples you give, because penises are not visible to people in society. You're not going to get societal asterisk shaming as a result of having asterisk a small, because almost no one will know. In fact, an extremely large majority of people directly insulted by these jokes and slurs actually have average-sized penises within 2 standard deviations of the mean. Individuals who are fat, certain races and sexes and sexual preferences, because we don't closet people much these days in said progressive
societies get insulted, discriminated against, and shamed all the time, directly and with intent. That's a societal asterisk problem that goes way beyond abstract asterisk hurt feelings about comments directly at other people asterisk into something that actually impacts the affected people societally, directly, not just because it hurts their feelings. I grant you it's mean asterisk interpersonally and not a nice thing to do, but it doesn't actually asterisk societally impact people with small penises. Furthermore, almost no one in society actually asterisk believes that
size matters for anything anywhere outside of the bedroom, so the level of discrimination,
even if somehow they find out, is almost entirely restricted to the bedroom activities where it matters. In this case, it's almost 100% about feels, not reals.
I think it's perfectly fine to insult any and all serial killers, even the ones with small penises. I understand a desire to prevent small penises being viewed negatively, however, by the transit of property, that's only going to occur if we can also change the view the larger penises as a positive, which isn't very likely. Penises have a physical use that ultimately impacts others. if the recipients of pleasure from by and large agree that larger penises are more pleasurable, then by default smaller penises will be viewed as less pleasurable. Said recipients have every right to form said opinion. It is in part due to this rationale that your comparisons are shown to be irrelevant. No one else is negatively impacted by the existence of gay people or
black people, so there is no justifiable logic to suggest they are worse than white or straight people. One is baseless bigotry, and the other is a justified opinion.